One of the very first things that we learn as a very small child is to not break things. Hello, welcome to episode 6 of Piece by Pieces. I'm your host, Ashley Hutt. Thank you for joining us today. Let's jump in. We all have that moment where we are a couple of months old or a year old and we grab something and mom and dad or whoever is like, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, give me that, honey. I don't want you to break it. I don't want you to break it. I don't want it to get broken. Or, oh, no, 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 no. Oh, be very, very careful. Be very careful with this. Hold it with both hands. Be very, very careful with this. You are expected to be very, very careful with this because we don't want to break it. We don't want to break it. Oh, you broke it. Oh, you broke it. Look at this mess. We all have these moments, and it's something that I believe is innate in our childhood. Okay. And I had a pivotal moment a couple of months ago where I was at a crossroads in my business and I didn't know which way to go. And I was taking a moment of reflection to be like, why do I feel like I'm getting pulled in all these different directions? Why do I keep having shiny object syndrome is what it's called, where I'm like, oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do this. And yes, I have ADHD or ADHD tendencies, but this was something more. And when I sunk into it, it was a distraction. And I was like, a distraction from what? Why do I need to be distracted? Why am I distracting myself? And there was a little voice that said, you're just going to break it anyway. That you're just going to break it anyway. And I was like, hi, who are you? And I sunk into myself. And it was a little 4-year-old me who said, you're just going to break it anyway. You're just going to break it anyway. And I feel like that's something that was actually said to me when I was 4 years old. Maybe from a parent, maybe from a preschool teacher, maybe from my sister who is older than me. Maybe she didn't want me playing with a toy of hers and I got mad about it and she was like, you're just going to break it anyway. Right? Like these are common, normal, in quotes, things that I believe that we have all experienced. And in that moment, I had this moment of the domino effect, the butterfly wing effect, or however we want to talk about it, however we want to frame it, but the effect that that has throughout our life and how much energy and time and um, attention and intention that we put into not breaking things because it's something that we're not supposed to do. Now, there's so many more implications of this, but I'm just going to skim the surface here. And with that epiphany that I had that day of, what if it's okay if it breaks? Instead of distracting myself and doing all of these things that we do, whether it's a job or parenting or in a marriage or a relationship or a friendship or house or lifestyle or, wanting something different. But the fear that's there around making that change, because what if we break it? And then, of course, there's the whole saying of, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Um, but what if it's okay if it breaks? What if it's okay if it breaks? Now, the last episode, I shared the story of when my daughter's leg got broken when she was 3 years old, and the transformation that happened during that time, and how it ended up being a story of blessing, really. A silver lining to the cloud, or however, shiny metaphor you want to put on it, but how it was an overall beneficial event in our relationship, as in my relationship with my daughter, and me in the position of being a mother. So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it, because it was an emotional, it was definitely emotional, a share my soul moment. So please go back and listen to that if you haven't already. But this concept of it's okay if it breaks. It's okay if it breaks. So think about it. Think about in your life, what things, what concepts, what relationships, what roles, what, decisions have you wanted to make, or changes that you've wanted to implement in your life, that you didn't for fear of breaking something, doing it wrong, messing it up, or situations where you maybe stayed a little longer than you should have because we don't break things. Do you have any stories like that? Are you battling with something right now? Is there a change that you want to make in your life right now, but you don't, or you haven't taken those steps yet because of fear breaking it, or ending up worse off, or making a mistake, making the wrong decision? These are all different forms of don't break it, right? So this past Friday was my birthday. I am now a beautiful 40 years young. I feel like we get to this point where we don't want to call ourselves old anymore, and I get it because language is important. But I have now lived through 40 cycles of the sun. And paired with that epiphany that I had a couple of months ago of the it's okay if it breaks, I wanted to go to one of those places where you break stuff. And there's one near here where I am right now, here in the Louisville, Kentucky area. And it's called the Smash Lab. And they have what they call a rage room. And I feel like a lot of people do this to get some rage out, to get some anger out, which is all another flavor of it's okay if it breaks, because rage and anger are also things that we are taught from a very young age that we're not allowed to do. We're not allowed to be angry. We're not allowed to have rage. These are emotional shutdowns that most of us, especially those of us that are like 30 and up, I think, have grown up with. So just that, and that of course leads to, because emotions don't go away, they don't disappear, they're just stuffed under the proverbial rug somewhere in your body, basically, because the body keeps score. Those emotions get trapped in your body, which then can create literal physical illnesses. But that's not what we're talking about today either. So we went to the Smash Lab and broke some stuff. And it was this kind of freeing realization that you you can you can break things, and that it is okay if it breaks. And that's different than like intentionally breaking something. Like, that wasn't an act of violence, right? That's a different thing altogether, right? But it was this kind of profound moment, realization of like things can be broken. It's okay if it breaks. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the more that I've said that to myself, the like energetic and like literal weight that has kind of like fallen off of my shoulders and off of my back of expectations, basically. And one of my close friends that came with me to celebrate my birthday and to break stuff as well, she echoed the same thing of it being like, I hadn't even had this conversation with her, I don't think, but she was like, it's such a taboo thing. It's one of the first things we learn when we're kids, is to not break things. And there we were breaking stuff, because the truth is that we can. We tell ourselves a lot. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. I couldn't do that. Oh, well, I can't break this. But the truth is, we can break things. You can do that thing. And when you say that you can't do something, you are placing a limitation on yourself and you are disempowering yourself, because the truth is you can. And you may not want to. You may not want to, and you may choose not to, but that's putting you in the place of power of I'm making not, like, because when we say we can't, that's like, I can't. This is not on the table. This is not even an option. When in most cases, it is an actual option. You can do it. And when you say, I can do it, but I'm choosing not to, then you are empowering yourself. And every time you do that, you become more and more empowered around your own ability to choose in literally every aspect of your life. So, a couple other times that this concept has popped up in my life was when my daughter was about 2 or 3 years old. We were at a big box store and we walked down the book aisle, and she pointed to a kid's book, and I picked it up and showed her and like read her the title. And then she was like, Mommy, read it. And I kind of stopped and looked at the book and looked at her and like looked around and was like, my thought was, what was going through my head was, I can't just stop here in the middle of the aisle in the store and read a book that I have no intention of buying. I can't do that. And then it was like a little voice was like, why not? Why not? Why can't you? You can. In that moment, I physically could stop, read a book, and then put it back on the shelf. And that's exactly what I did. We stood there in the aisle. I read it was a board book, it had maybe 6 pages. I read the board book and she was like, that's nice. And I was like, yeah. And then I put it back on the shelf and then we continued walking. No one died. No one died. No one lost any money. No one was bleeding. I didn't even inconvenience anybody because there was no one else in the aisle. No one even saw us. So think about moving forward through the day today and the rest of your life and catch yourself when you say you can't do something. Catch yourself when you say you can't do something, and ask yourself, can I really not do this? Or can I, and I'm choosing not to, because the energy shifts in it. Another example of this was about a year ago. My daughter and I spent a couple of months down in Pensacola, Florida. And there was one day that we were going to go to the beach, and we're starting to pack up everything. And she looks at her Barbie house, which isn't the big dream house. It's a big house, but it folds down to about 2 feet high, but it's really thin. And she was like, hey, Mommy, can we take the Barbie house to the beach? And in my head was almost like a cacophony of like different voices from my life and different people in my life of being like, no, we can't take the Barbie house to the beach. How dare you even ask that? We take care of our things and blah, blah, blah. Like all this stuff of like, no, 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 no. We can't do that. And I would like quieted the voices down and was like, can we? Can we? Why am I saying no? Right? Like, what would it look like if we did? If I said yes, what would it look like if we did? And I said yes. I was like, well, I would get a bag to put this in, and I have a bag that's big enough to carry it in. And we take it to the beach and we play on it. And if it gets sandy, we wash it off. And then we bring it back home. What if I did that? And I couldn't come up with any legit reasons of why I couldn't do that. I couldn't come up with any legit reasons of why I had to say no to her. So I was like, okay, yeah. And I was really uncomfortable doing this, by the way. Super uncomfortable because it felt like I was going against so many voices of authority in my head. Okay. My mom, friends' moms, maybe like, grandparents, I don't even know, teachers, because that's, you can take water toys to the beach, but not toys that are meant to stay in the house, right? So we took the Barbie house to the beach and it was awesome. It was awesome. And for a couple of hours, Barbie actually had a beach house on the beach. And it was such a memorable time for me. And it was like I exploded some boxes that I had been inside of up until that day. And I remember even that day being really apprehensive to share pictures of that day, of what we had done, because I assumed that I would get all of this judgment from other people, like eye rolls and, oh my gosh, she's indulging her and she can't say no to her daughter, and like all of this BS that was all imagined, for one. I have no idea if anyone actually thought that. And if they did, that's their own stuff, not me at all, right? Like, all that matters is how I felt in that moment. And what I realized that day is that anything wet can be dried, anything dirty can be cleaned, anything broken can be fixed, anything destroyed can be replaced, and anything irreplaceable can be remembered. And that felt really powerful because not just with things, but roles and relationships, friendships, moments in time, conversations, hugs. I think that applies to everything. And when we look at these things that we're not supposed to do, and there's a lot of them, and I do believe that there are some core ones that we all have, or most of us have. And then, of course, each one of us has our own flavors of these things that we're not supposed to do, depending on the family that we grew up in our childhood, and the things that we did in our lived experience. And those things that we're not supposed to do are essentially limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs behave as invisible forces that prevent us from putting our best selves, that prevent us from stepping into our potential, stepping into our purpose, stepping into our passion, and living this life that we're meant to live. These limiting beliefs, whatever sizes, flavors, colors, textures that you have, are holding you back, are keeping you stuck. Louise Hay has a quote that says, if you accept a limiting belief, then it becomes a truth for you. So what limiting beliefs are you carrying right now that are keeping you back, holding you back from the things that you know, like in your gut, in your heart, in your core, that you want or need, or that you're here to do in this life? And there are all these veils and walls and barriers and blocks, lies and stories that come up in your mind, voices of other people in your past that didn't believe in you, didn't believe in themselves, and projected their own stuff onto you. Become aware of these things so you can start peeling them back and step into what you are actually meant to do in this life. Catch yourself the next time you say, oh, I can't do that. Question it, investigate it, examine it. Why can't you do it? Can you really not do it? Or can you do it and you're choosing not to? And that's okay. And that's okay. And maybe it's okay if it breaks. Maybe it's okay if it breaks. And if you find yourself right now in a time where you just feel stuck and you feel like something needs to move emotionally, physically, in your lifestyle, in your relationships, whatever, you just feel like, something's not right and I need to do something, I invite you to join me for a free 3-day masterclass. You can find out more information at www.ashleyhutt.com. That's ASHLEYHUTT.com for a 3-day masterclass called The Catalyst. Because I don't care if you work with me or with anybody else, or you watch a ton of YouTubes or listen to a bunch of podcasts, read a bunch of books, whatever resources are available to you. But maybe this will be the catalyst to really get you to step into who you're meant to be. Thanks again for watching or listening. Love.